Man, you can't even get a week into the NFL season or training camp for the NFL season, and already we got some bad news. Joe Burrow, strained calf, goes down, gets helped to a cart at practice yesterday. They're calling it the strain. Maybe nothing serious to be looking at, but he did have...
It sure looked serious. My goodness.
And he had the sleeve already on there. So
Right.
is this something that he was dealing with previously that flared up again? And then Jalen Ramsey, maybe the more serious that we know of right now. So he suffered a torn meniscus. It's going to require surgery. He's going to be out, I'm seeing 6 to 8 weeks, but he's going to miss the start of training camp or the start of the season. So right off the bat, you've got 2 superstar players in the AFC who both go down with injuries. And it just feels like same old story. Right when you think you know what's going to happen in the NFL, stuff like this gets thrown in your lap, and it completely potentially changes the course of both these teams as they head into the season. So, disappointing.
I know, I think the NFL and NFLPA maybe wants to look at, coaches have talked about this. Not that they really get a say in basically anything, which is one of the most surprising things when you look at the difference between the NFL and college football. Coaches have so much more of a say in how things kind of operate, whether it could be recruiting windows, whether it could be transfer portal windows, or just the calendar year in general. It seems like college football takes into account coaches more so than the NFL. And the reason why I bring this up is coaches have always had an issue with the NFL calendar and how it's slated. It doesn't really make sense if you think about it, okay? So you go into an off-season program, like season ends, you go into an off-season program, used to be back in March, now it's April, okay? And you kind of start with some light stuff. You can't even do really anything on the field football-wise. It's all like conditioning, strength stuff. And then you get into having these practices that aren't even padded, all right? You got OTAs, off-season training activities. And these are not even padded practices. You can't hit, can't bang, can't do the things that you actually need to practice and do. But during a period of time during the year where it really doesn't matter, right? You're in May, you're into June, then you got this 3-day mini camp, okay? Then you have 6 weeks off in some cases. 6 weeks. And then you all of a sudden ramp and hit right into training camp where you've got some preseason games. In some cases, teams go to camp. They're playing a game, a meaningful preseason game to some of these back end of the roster guys in 2.5 weeks. It's kind of bizarre if you actually think about it. Like, you'd rather have your players build up to something instead of have them come in, start to build up to something, and then be off for 6 weeks, and then go right back into this intense environment that is training camp. And so I know a lot of coaches would like to see them maybe get more time off during the spring and then have these guys come back where you don't have that 6-week layoff and you're getting guys in camp and you're not easing them into it because they've already been eased into it 6 weeks prior. So I think it's something the NFL should really look at because the first 2 weeks of camp, every player, every coach will tell you there's always soft tissue injuries. There's always issues that pop up. And these are the sorts of things that can literally derail an entire season, especially when you're talking about a player like Joe Burrow.
Adam Schefter sent a tweet out yesterday. Sorry to jump in, LaVar, but he sent a tweet out that he texted with an NFL head coach, and the coach said the exact same thing. I hate the first 2 weeks of training camp. They need to restructure the offseason. So it is something that you don't hear a lot about, but apparently there's a groundswell of people looking at it going, why are we doing this the way we're doing it? And so now you got 2 guys injured.
Logistically, I leave that up to the expert of one Brady Quinn. But I'll say this. First glance at the way Joe Burrow pulled up, I immediately thought about how I pulled up when I popped my Achilles tendon. Yeah, it didn't look good, man, because it's immediately you just don't want to put any pressure down on your foot. But if it's a strain, then that's a tear too. By the way, if people didn't know that, strains
micro
are
tears, right?
Slight minor tears or whatever. But I do hope that it's minor in nature. But when you think about overcompensating and dealing with different body part issues, especially weight bearing body parts, it's very difficult to get to a place of where you don't possibly get a more serious injury further down the road, especially if you are pushing to get back out there and get back on the field. So now I think, for my focus on just looking at these injuries, even for Jalen Ramsey, because I also had to deal with meniscus issues as well. That was actually the death of my career. Was I kept splitting my cartilage at some point during practice or during a game. Like I would make movements and I would split cartilage, and so I would have to go get scopes. With both injuries, whether it's soft tissue for his calf or getting through the recovery of the meniscus tear and that repair and them cleaning it up, which is them basically going in and shaving away what would look like fingernails hanging from your knee, the sponge of your knee. Basically, they got to shave that down and smooth that out. There's a recovery time where you really have to allow for that knee to calm down and to feel better. And then there's also the strengthening and conditioning of that knee. So Jalen Ramsey is going to have to make sure that he's very diligent and how he goes through his recovery process, even though these types of injuries are actually more minor, considered to be more minor, nowadays. But he's still going to have to make sure that his body is really feeling back to normal because he's getting older. And I think that the injuries, the opportunity for more serious injuries, you're more likely to be in those type of scenarios the older you get, and getting those smaller injuries that kind of create that overcompensating. I had so much cartilage removed that my knee was not on balance the way that it was before I started getting it, shaved up. And then, you have little holes. They take x-rays and MRIs, and you start to see where there's holes in your cartilage and stuff. It's real intense. And again, then flipping back to Joe Burrow, you just don't want to take if it is indeed just a calf strain, you got to make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can to keep them stretched out, to keep that calf as healthy and as, what they say, as supple as you possibly can, because it can go. That Achilles tendon can go, and if it pops, that's it for the year. So that was the first thing I thought about when I started hearing the types of injuries that were taking place. Was my concern was, it's interesting because I thought about you, Q, because I was like, I wonder if it's the cleats or could it be the turf?
No one wants to. Well, I mean, they were on grass, I think, for Burrow's practice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Jalen Ramsey injury, I look at it and go, it's all fun and games trying to cover Tyreek Hill or whatever. But
I was just going to say that
happens.
We've seen video of the Burrow injury. I've looked for the Jalen Ramsey injury. I don't see it anywhere, but the way it's detailed is that he became tangled up with Tyreek Hill. And I just wonder if Tyreek Hill put him on skates, and maybe that's what led to this. And maybe
you're saying that he put him on skates so they don't want to show it on?
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
grabbed him up.
And maybe Jalen Ramsey's agent might have a couple of comments on it at some point, since he has a lot of comments on a lot of things. Apparently.
He does.
Yeah.
Well, he'll at least post a photo, probably.
Do you think he'll post a photo with him post-surgery?
Oh, after surgery?
Right.
Well, I don't know, though, because after surgery, it's not like a tough, hard photo. So he probably won't be, there for him then. He'll just be there for him when there's like a Twitter beef.
Is he going to be holding up Jalen Ramsey's meniscus going, did it today, and just hashtag something and post it on Instagram?
Athletes
looking
first,
hard,
meniscus healed.
Yeah, looking hard.
First.
Yeah.
Meniscus healed. You stupid. Stupid.
He'll be acting like he did it. Like
Right.
we're here
Like
now.
he did the surgery.
I was the surgeon. Yeah.
He's gonna have.
Go ahead.
That's the
now,
thing is he'll be
would make sense.
He'll be standing hard with the orthopedic, like in a mask and
With the
gown and all
scrubs
that.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, the scrubs.
we did it. We did it.